It was a normal afternoon when I first noticed the chaos brewing. My wife, Sarah, was outside retrieving the mail when suddenly our neighborhood association president, Lillian Price, shouted out, "She's got a gun. Someone call the police." Lillian, clutching a hefty rule book, had clearly found her perfect moment to make a move. But what she didn't know was that she had just triggered a turn of events that no one, not even the officers, could have anticipated. The sirens wailed as 3 police cars pulled up to our house, officers leaping out, weapons ready. They approached, demanding answers, as the entire street watched in shock. The following moments would become the biggest scandal our city had ever witnessed. This all began on what should have been one of the happiest days of our lives, moving into our new home. Sarah and I had worked tirelessly for years to make this dream a reality. We thought we had found the perfect neighborhood, peaceful and picturesque. But the moment we arrived, things felt off. The houses were eerily identical, with matching fences, uniform flower beds, and identical mailboxes, as if every home had been replicated from a blueprint. I tried to dismiss it at first, but then I saw her, Lillian Price, standing stiffly on her perfectly manicured lawn, arms crossed, a giant binder tucked firmly under her arm. No greeting, no warm welcome, just a cold stare. It was as though she had been waiting for us to arrive. Before we could even start unpacking, Lillian approached us with her classic stern expression, binder in hand. She introduced herself with a rehearsed, fake smile that oozed disapproval. "Welcome to Rosewood Meadows," she said, her voice sugary sweet yet hollow. "Here's your copy of the community guidelines. I suggest you read it thoroughly before you unpack. Our rules are very specific." The weight of the binder was almost too much to handle. It was at least 200 pages thick, filled with endless rules about everything, from how tall the grass could be to the approved colors for outdoor furniture. As Sarah came around from the back of the truck, I noticed Lillian's eyes immediately latch onto the holstered gun at Sarah's side. Now, Sarah had been a cop for over 20 years, and she always carried, even when off duty. It was just part of who she was. But Lillian stared at it as though Sarah had pulled it out and was waving it around. "That gun looks like it's been fired recently," Lillian said, her tone suddenly icy. The comment was invasive, unsettling. "I'm a police officer," Sarah responded calmly. "Of course it's been used." Lillian's gaze sharpened, and she muttered something under her breath, as though she were sizing Sarah up. But then she carried on, ignoring the strange energy between them, launching into a lecture about the neighborhood's rules, which, as it turned out, covered everything from fence height to the color of garden hoses. When she pulled out a tape measure to check our fence's height, I could feel the tension building. It wasn't just about the rules, it was about control. After she left, Sarah and I exchanged wary glances. Something was off with Lillian, and we both sensed it. Later that evening, as we unpacked, I found an old document hidden in the back of a shelf in the garage. It was dated 20 years ago and had the name L. Price printed on it. I immediately showed it to Sarah, who frowned at the paper. "That name sounds familiar," she said. "I'll look into it tomorrow." Something doesn't sit right with me about her. The next day, Sarah started her investigation. She came across some disturbing connections, but what really caught her attention was Lillian's past involvement with law enforcement. There were rumors of a shady case from years ago, and it seemed like Lillian had been somehow connected to it. As we were piecing things together, we got a visit from Lillian, this time with a man named Carl, who introduced himself as a member of the HOA's safety committee. They were here to inspect our property for safety violations. What followed next was a game of intimidation, a detailed list of infractions, including our fence and even the color of our moving blankets. But it was the next part of the story that really sent things spiraling out of control. Lillian presented us with a bill for a mandatory fence replacement, an outrageous $50,000 price tag. This wasn't just about our fence anymore. It was about Lillian's monopoly on the neighborhood. She even had a contractor, one she conveniently approved, waiting to fix the issue. I didn't trust any of it. I started digging into the company Lillian was recommending, and it didn't take long to uncover a huge conflict of interest. The company was owned by Lillian herself, under her maiden name, and it seemed as though she was running a massive scam by using the HOA to force residents into hiring her own company at inflated prices. When I confronted Sarah with the evidence, she was furious, but more than that, she had a plan. Sarah had been through plenty in her career, but Lillian's blatant corruption had crossed a line. She wasn't going to let this slide. "Here's what we're going to do," Sarah said with a cold smile. "We play along, document everything, and let Lillian think she's in control. But when we're ready, we strike." And strike we did. By the time things reached a boiling point, Lillian's grip on the neighborhood was unraveling fast. She attempted to manipulate the entire community with a series of live streams, painting herself as the victim of our supposed harassment. The crowd rallied behind her at first, but as the lies piled up, people started to question her motives. When Sarah's investigation uncovered more damning evidence, the walls finally came crashing down. Lillian, once the feared HOA president, was exposed for what she really was, a criminal mastermind who had used her position to extort money from her neighbors and cover up a deep web of corruption. At the end of it all, Lillian was arrested. The neighborhood's power structure collapsed, and a new, more united community emerged from the ashes. People painted their houses in bright, bold colors, creating a vibrant, welcoming environment. The fences were fixed without Lillian's manipulation, and the community's HOA was dissolved. The city's corruption was exposed, and those responsible, Lillian included, faced justice. Sarah, having been reinstated, received a hero's welcome, and new laws were passed to ensure such abuses of power never happened again. The neighborhood was finally free from the grip of fear, and as I looked out my window, I saw Sarah walking back from her patrol, still wearing her badge and carrying her gun. Except now, she was working for a community that stood up for what was right. In the end, what began as a simple dispute over a fence turned into a powerful movement that completely transformed our community. The corruption that once thrived under Lillian Price's rule crumbled, and the neighborhood that once lived in fear was reborn. The collective spirit of neighbors who had been silenced for years now stood united, their voices strong and proud. The fight wasn't just about defeating a corrupt HOA president. It was about reclaiming the essence of community. It was about making sure no one could exploit the power they held over others, no matter how subtle or manipulative the tactics. As for Sarah, her unwavering dedication to justice brought about real change, not just in the neighborhood, but in the larger system that allowed such abuses to take place. Today, as I look out from our porch, I'm reminded of the power of standing up for what's right, of how even the smallest act of resistance can spark a chain reaction that shakes the foundation of injustice. The neighborhood is thriving again, and we've learned that together we can overcome anything.